We asked storytellers to select a type of story and some words to inspire the stories that they tell.
So when I got to college in Western Massachusetts, it was actually my first time coming back to the States since primary school. And I felt very out of place. I didn't really know Massachusetts at all. And I immediately sort of latched on to someone who felt a little bit like me. She had some ties to the US. But she was new to the US as well. She hadn't grown up here. And so Lisa was sort of my go-to. I think she just, as much as I felt we had something in common, she just epitomized everything that I was not. She was tall and bold and beautiful, and she had these elaborate, gorgeous braids. She seemed exceedingly confident. She had this great kind of powerful laugh. And she had the most exquisite voice. You would hear, we lived in the same house, and as you walked around, you could just hear her voice like wafting through the halls. So I felt a lot of kinship with her, but I was also incredibly intimidated by her. Yet she somehow deigned to kind of hang out with me, and we became fast friends. I think, partially because we were both kind of new to the States, and we were both also mixed. So I think that was mixed race. I think that was something that kind of bound us together. And we had kind of obnoxious pet names for each other. But so we kind of, I felt like a lot of my interests sort of evolved from her interests too. I'm not a tremendous singer, but I somehow managed to do choir. I personally have always been really interested in politics, but she really went and made something out of it. She studied government. And she would then go on to kind of work in nonprofit and in sort of development and the UN and stuff like that. I felt like she had a real vision for the world and the way she wanted to see it, and I was more like kind of a mercenary. I had the same interests, but I was always really worried about paying rent. But when we graduated, we stayed in touch, and I was, initially I was in Hong Kong, and she was one of my first friends to have kids. And she had this beautiful boy named Nadi, and I remember going to visit her in Europe, and he was just this cherub, and he was fun and energetic, and I remember him getting stuck in like the dishwasher, and not really, like not dangerously, like in a very cute way, and we quickly took him out. And he just had this like kind of charming, devilish smile that he was irresistible. You knew that he was going to get his way with pretty much everything. Later on, I moved to New York, and that turned out to be a great place because later she and Nadi were in Haiti, and they would make their way through New York on their way back to Europe to see family and friends. And so I was kind of at this essential nexus, this perfect stop where they would kind of stop off and stay for a few days, and I really got to know them. And aside from knowing her, I hadn't really spent a ton of time with him. And I remember one time, he must have been about 8. She was still asleep, and he kind of ventured out of the room, like very trepidatiously, almost like an animal, like worried he was going to get eaten or something by going to the watering hole. But this child was hungry, and he was looking for food, and as timidly as I could, the way you might sort of coax a wild animal, I tried to sort of let him know that it was okay. And I told him, what would you like to eat something? And we were able to rustle up some toast and something, and we sat just the two of us and had this great conversation, and about nothing much in particular, what he was into. And I think those were sort of the beginning of our own relationship and friendship separate from me and his mother, Lisa. So we had this great run over many years of going back and forth, spending this time together. Every time they would come to New York, and we'd go to exhibits and movies and do fun stuff. And, you know, he was also very political, so we'd watch lots of Daily Show and Jon Stewart, and it was just fun, wonderful time together. And I think, you know, I relied on it. I came to expect those trips, and I kind of took them for granted because, you know, it never occurred to me to go visit them. They were always going to be in New York, and I always made the most of their visits. Until I didn't. And, you know, it's 10 years ago yesterday, unfortunately, that we had the earthquake in Haiti, and we lost Lisa. Nadi thankfully made it. And, you know, I've done my best in these 10 years not to take him for granted or to take the opportunities with him for granted. So he's not my son. I think of him sort of like family, like an adopted godson, and I'm really thankful for the time that he and I have been able to spend together and for the glimpses I get to see of Lisa through him too.